John McTernan is a former advisor to Tony Blair. And John, it's fascinating reading so much about this today, even calls for regime change. Morgan McSweeney, his chief of staff, facing an apparent backlash. There's many problems for Keir Starmer. What do you think he should do?
I think he should take the wording of the reasoned amendment as a basis for discussions with the rebels. He's pushed over 120 Labour MPs into a situation they didn't want to, which is to pledge to vote against a Labour bill. And the reasoned amendment is actually a very reasonable amendment.
What are they actually proposing, John? What do they want to happen?
They want a pause in these current proposals. They want any changes to the benefit system actually done in a way that works with disability organisations, co-produced by them, so that disabled people and their representatives can be involved. They want to see the cadence of this change so that the priorities put on bringing in the help that gets people with illnesses and sicknesses and disabilities into work, to do that first and see how that succeeds. A whole range of things which actually just change this from being a take it or leave it bill. And the danger of take it or leave it is what just happened is that a bunch of MPs are going, do you know what? We could leave it.
And if they do leave it, where does that leave Starmer?
Well, he was heading for, the government were heading for a defeat next Tuesday. They've acknowledged that, they've recognised that. I mean, I think what they're doing today is what they should have done yesterday. They should yesterday have accepted this was not going to go through next Tuesday. They needed to have an off-ramp. There's still, it sounds to me from the reports, the meetings in Number 10, things aren't going particularly well, because once you concede you're not going to have the vote, you've lost all your strength. You know, you are the weaker party. The government whips and the government ministers aren't negotiating with strength, they're negotiating with a situation where they have to give enough to the rebels. Otherwise, the rebels will carry on and go, no, fair enough, let's actually have the vote, let's actually go for this. So what they have to do is give a lot of the substance of what the reasoned amendment's arguing for, and part of that is a substantial pause, not what's been, I think, discussed by some people doing TV rounds for the government. We can agree in principle an approach to how we work on this, but past the second reading, I think it's either delay the bill substantially while there's discussions about how to improve it, or it's let the bill die.
Watching Prime Minister's questions yesterday, or more accurately, Deputy Prime Minister's questions to Angela Rayner from Mel Stride. He was, of course, the Work and Pension Secretary. Angela Rayner, to me, obviously she's a very assured person, she's a good communicator, but I'm not convinced she actually believed what she was saying. She was trotting out the government lines, and that's her job, and that's what she had to do. But really, there must be quite a lot of very senior people, I would perhaps suggest, including Angela Rayner, who really are feeling very uncomfortable at this moment.
I thought the DPM, Deputy Prime Minister, was very loyal, very sure-footed. She had to stick to the government line. She probably knew by that time it was going to be changing, but she couldn't say the change until this morning when people went on the media rounds and admitted there were going to be talks, there were going to be conversations which read concessions. And I think that the issue which the whole thing raises is, what were all the members of the cabinet, apart from Keir Starmer, apart from Rachel Reeves, and apart from Liz Kendall, the Work and Pension Secretary, what were they thinking when this came to cabinet? Because
there seem to be a lot of mistakes, John, don't there? There seem to be a lot of things that, you know, to an engaged observer, to someone with your experience, to someone even with my much less senior experience than you in government, where you say, do you know what, if you cut winter fuel allowances, this is going to be really problematic. If you cut welfare, this is going to be really problematic. And you might say you have to do it, but the money can perhaps be found from elsewhere.
No, I think the issue is a lot of this flows from adopting very tight fiscal rules. There wasn't enough headroom in them probably when they're agreed in opposition. There's definitely not enough headroom in them last year when the first statements on spending in the budget was set out, and it's led to a kind of stop-start urgency. You know, we have to take away the winter fuel payments from pensioners. Oh no, actually we don't, and we can give the money back. In opposition, we can't possibly agree to the two-child benefit the cap being lifted. Actually, we're going to make some move on that. It's been signalled clearly. Now we've got this turning the tap on, turning the tap off. we need £5 billion, let's get it from benefits because we can stop that quickly. Now, the Treasury always look on Department of Work and Pensions as a very straightforward tap of revenue. You can turn it on, turn it off. It's one that's directly controlled by the government. It's not given to any intermediary body. It's simply the government pays to individuals. And it feels that there's not really a through line in the arguments for the winter fuel payment being removed, for it being restored, for the child benefit cap being two child cap being lifted or not being lifted, or the disability benefits. What's the Labour argument for taking nearly £4,000 a year away from about 1 million people?
Yeah.
There's not been that. So in that, there's been, I think, bad politics always shows up.
There's a lot of bad politics though, John.
You can't make it, if you can't make a good argument, a decent argument for a policy, there's probably something wrong with the policy. I think that's what I'm saying.
Is Starmer any good at this? Is he any good at governing?
Well, I think he's very good at governing. I think you've seen it in the way he's done. Look, internationally, I think flawless. Look at the way he's played.
He didn't know Starmer was going to drop those bombs in Iran. He said he wasn't going to.
Sorry, if we're talking about
sorry, Trump. He said he was. Sorry, apologies. He said he was. Yes, let's be accurate in all of this. He was sure that Trump wasn't going to drop bombs in Iran, and then that happened.
Well, I think what we know from the reports in the papers is that the Defence Secretary and the National Security Advisor and the Vice President were all opposed to the dropping of the bombs on Iran. So there's a kind of broad consensus, I think, and now there's a really strong consensus that dropping the bombs didn't do very much damage to the nuclear program. So obviously, we are close allies with the country. We don't discuss all their military operations. There's OPSEC reasons for that. And the thing about Keir is, internationally, I think flawless, 3 trade deals, a close relationship with Trump, even the way he's been in NATO on the international stage, domestically just less sure-footed. And it feels to me that there's something that's what I was meaning about the cabinet. Why haven't the cabinet taken more of a role, taken more of a position about saying, look, okay, we've been seeing this now for a year. We need we take collective responsibility for decisions. We need a bit of a collective political management of this as well. And that for me is it. On issues where you can apply the way that Keir works, the methodical way that he works as a former lawyer, former prosecutor, well, what is the issue? What are the facts? Can I look at them all? Can I look at the options?
But there's a huge level of emotional intelligence, party management, dealing with emotions and people that and that he doesn't seem to have, even when it comes to his own party.
But in the end, party management is easy when you're doing things which are right, and really hard when you're doing things which are wrong. And it's, defending the indefensible. You'll know this from your own time as an advisor. Defending the indefensible is the hardest job any advisor has to support a minister doing. And that's the nub of it, which is the wrong decision was made when the target was set on disability benefits. The target was set that would mean real people losing real money.
John, thank you. That's John McTernan there, former advisor to Tony Blair. Very interesting to hear what he had to say about Keir Starmer there.